doesn't really work, but they've been doing that since the beginning of the year. And like Vish said, they did get to meet with the minister, but yeah, they were really treated really disrespectfully, not listened to at all. And some of them will be coming through here, I'm hoping in the next half an hour or so, and maybe you guys could speak to them if you want. But yeah, so the vision about this is that universities are a unique space. They're a space of learning. We get to shape and exchange knowledge in these spaces, and I think in the face of worsening climate crisis, universities have this potential to be a leader in society, and this is along with obviously community activists and that kind of thing. As Machidzi mentioned, it's also spaces where you, as an activist, can start to shift your schools, can start to shift thinking if there are certain things that are going on that are going to be contributing to climate change. I think universities are really an integral space that we need to win as activists. And so just some background on our COPAC's engagement with universities. So in 2016, I think Vish mentioned this, but just to say, in 2016, with WITS Inala Forum, which is a student organization, COPAC and SAFC, there was a march held at WITS. And this was through Braamfontein, and it was in the context of like the bread price fixing scandals and all of that stuff. 8,000 signatures were handed over to the university, and basically the demands were for a zero carbon, zero waste, and zero hunger university. And so one of the things that we are involved in, which is the Wits Food Sovereignty Center, is one of the projects that has created momentum behind that, but it's not enough, and we need to be building on that. We need to be building on those demands and actually demanding that they start doing it, because 2016 was 4 years ago. So we are trying to move Wits in that direction and make sure they take on those demands. So what we are asking, or what we are proposing, is that students hold these climate justice assemblies. And this would happen once a week at a specific time that is appropriate for students. I think maybe each university is different. At WITS, maybe students aren't really on campus on Fridays, but yeah, so the proposed time for us is 12 to 2 p.m. on a Friday. As I say in the document, this can be worked out on a university-to-university basis. You can decide what the appropriate time is. And what this Climate Justice Assembly would be is an opportunity to discuss climate change, climate justice, run different teaching or workshopping sessions where we discuss these issues. I think Zelda mentioned that the topic of the commons was something that wasn't really known by a lot of people. Maybe that's a topic that a student assembly needs to cover. So yeah, running teach-ins, showing various movies and documentaries that have been helpful to us in this room to understand climate change. And then also to clarify the way forward for the climate justice movement. And one of those things is to actually get students to engage with the Climate Justice Charter. And this would be properly engaged, looking through the sections, looking through the principles, the goals, the alternatives. Does it reflect the concerns and the needs of students? Does it have a young person's voice? Is it relevant to the youth, essentially? So what this would do would also build on a climate justice network, because I think the universities are a very good mobilizing tool as well. If we can get university students and student organizations on board, I think that's a really, really great mobilizing tool for future actions that we'd like to hold. So the Climate Justice Charter Network would include students, so student organizations, for example, EWB, Engineers Without Borders, INALA, various organizations, but also academics and service staff, and they would all be together for the common goal of getting the university to adopt the charter. So this is, you can read the document, but yeah, some of these dates are obviously going to have to change. But essentially, those spaces up until May would be to get feedback for the charter, and then thereafter would be to discuss various mobilizing initiatives for October and beyond for the movement in general. So the demands that, particularly WITS, the demands that we've written up to hand over, which we wanted to do tomorrow, but as mentioned, the situation at WITS is not solid yet, so we don't know what we're going to do. But I don't know if you guys all saw the poster that was made, but there were a couple of demands that we wanted to hand over to the university. So I'm just gonna read them out quickly. And this comes from students, but also from climate justice activists in general. So the demands are, number one, that universities divest from fossil fuels. Number two, that universities become zero carbon institutions through transitioning to renewable energy and integrating clean energy, affordable and mass transport systems in partnership with local governments for the use of the university community. This must done also to include the use of bicycles, etc., various tools. The next demand is that universities reject any support from fossil fuel corporations. For example, what Muchizi was speaking about, Sasol being in that engineering department. To ensure zero waste systems, to ensure zero hunger through food sovereignty pathways in and beyond the university. Food Sovereignty Center is something that is trying to push for this, but we need more support. And the last demand is that the university adopts the final climate justice charter. And then, so these assemblies would be run by students, would be convened by students, would be attended by anybody in the university community, and the role of COPAC would then just be to help students where they need. So for example, with providing intellectual resources. So if you need copies of the charter, if you need copies of the water guide, the seed guide, or whatever, however many guides we've COPAC has developed. And also planning for bigger action. So if one of the universities says, okay, look, we are ready for a march through our city, COPAC can maybe help with planning that. So as I said, there have been at various universities, and you'll hear more from Janet, Siamo, and Matthew, but various universities have taken this on and have taken on small projects, but they need to be integrated and they need to be strengthened so that we have a solid climate justice base at our universities. Universities are often seen as like this autonomous place that is separate from the government and the government has no jurisdiction over them. But if universities can really stand with us on the climate justice aspect, on the renewable energy aspect, I think it could really have the potential to sway society and put even more pressure on, corporations and government and that kind of thing. So the questions are also on the document, but I'm going to end there. And if maybe after the three panelists, I think if Muchizi or Wande also want to talk about, I think they've had 2 meetings as the Climate Justice Working Committee at WITS.
Yeah, there were 2. I wasn't able to make the last one.
Okay.
But I was there for the first one.
So maybe, anyway, so after the 3 panelists, maybe you guys can just pitch in what was discussed at that meeting and how things are going. Should we start with Siamo?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Hi there, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting. Thanks for that presentation, Courtney. I think we need to start by remembering that universities, unfortunately, are very elite spaces, but it also means that some of the people from university are going to become future political and economic leaders, ministers, executives, etc., and they're going to make the decisions that either keep the system the way that it is or transform it. So the battle for university spaces is also the battle for the future consciousness of leadership. Okay, so I first want to comment on some of the things that have happened at UFS this year. We've so far had a much better year than last year. So the first thing was we had a meeting a couple weeks ago with some members of the university management and community engagement stakeholders. And at this meeting, there were multiple complaints made against our agriculture department, and they are in charge of spearheading some environmental initiatives like boreholes on campus, the food sovereignty campaign with respect to food gardens. And so an official complaint has now been made against the agriculture department through the Dean of the Natural and Agricultural Sciences, and that will be forwarded to the rectorate if the agriculture department does not commit to some of the community engagement initiatives, including food gardens. So we finally got an official department at the university raising a complaint against the agriculture department, who, as you know, we've been fighting with for 1.5 years. We have commitment from the philosophy department to fund and support our food sovereignty initiatives, extending into climate justice. They're really concerned about the ecological crisis and are prepared to help us create a lecture series as well. In terms of the food sovereignty task team, students last week, for the first time since the task team was created over a year ago, have been included in the task team. And that's something we've been fighting for a long time. Members of the SRC and student assistants have been added, and they're allowing me to send through a list of 4 students to be added to the task team. They aren't allowing the report that they've made to go public. It was made in August about what they call the food environment on campus. So they've issued an entire report, but they're not allowing it to go out. So we're still going to fight for that to be released publicly. But we started to make huge strides in that respect. In terms of divestment, a new organization was started called Eagle Alliance at our university, and I've got them to agree to a campaign to divest from SASL. SASL is a named sponsor at our institution. They sponsor our library, our center is sponsored by SASL, and our computer labs. And I've actually got confirmation from the university that SASL is a sponsor of our library and computer labs. So it took me a long time for them to finally admit. So at least they've admitted it now. Our library is even named after them. The next step now is to rally these students. They were meant to have a meeting this week, but quite obviously that's not going to go ahead. But we've organized on WhatsApp, there's over 40 of us, and we've explained the whole process to divest. So that's one of the main campaigns we're going to be launching now, to divest from SASL. Yes. In terms of zero carbon, some initiatives the university takes are good. For instance, the university has installed solar panels around the institution. We have cell phone charger stations that are solar panel. Some of our buildings take some solar energy. But at the same time, they last year funded a new installation of air conditioning units. So it's like they make some decisions that move towards zero carbon, and then they make other decisions that backtrack. But what I've seen is that there's a battle right now in the upper management between people who want to move toward zero carbon and zero waste, and people who don't. So it seems that in the management there are some allies, and we just need to, as students, push to help those who are in senior management to push zero carbon initiative. But I think our university has already committed to going as solar as possible, and they also support renewable energy projects in other regions in the Free State. In terms of more zero waste systems, last week one of my friends had a meeting with the university about getting rid of bottled water. They've already agreed in principle. They just need to have a meeting of their own to discuss how to implement refills, for instance, in buildings. But they have agreed in principle to get rid of bottled water. So that's a battle that we've sort of won right now. But we're going to push them for more, less packaging on campus, a more reductive public education on how to reduce. There is a recycling project. It's not very successful. We are trying to get them to restart it. But we want to focus more on reducing waste. And for that, we want a public education campaign. In terms of food sovereignty, the food garden on campus is fully functional. They've already got their first harvest. They're working with a seed company, which I asked in the group about the seed company, and someone in the group responded that there's not much fishy about the seed company. Yeah, the first harvest has been taken to our food campaign. The only issue with the food project right now on our campus is the way that they're rolling it out. So they're rolling it out in a way that costs a lot of money. They're not necessarily implementing agroecology. So So we're really still fighting for an implementation of agroecology to drive down costs so that it doesn't cost as much. But there's a full commitment from the institution to expand the project. The person who was the Dean of Students at BITS when your food program started, Prof. Lingabula, is currently our Vice Rector of Institutional Change and Community Engagement. So I've had lots of conversations with her about what happened at BITS, and she's really keen to bring a lot of that to UFS, including a food sovereignty center. So we have the Vice Rector of our institution wants a food sovereignty center. It's just about getting that implemented now. And the first block is that agriculture department, which we're currently dealing with. We haven't yet made a formal proposal to adopt the Climate Justice Charter, but we have started Climate Maracas. We do these on Fridays as well. We do it at 1 p.m. We do it from 1 to 2 p.m. We did it 3 times last year. They haven't restarted this year. We actually got funding to do these. I actually like the phrase Friday for Future Friday. I think we should adopt that phrase. I think it's more catchy. But we do this already. We get funding from the Free State Center for Human Rights. They give us juice boxes and snacks, and then we ask people climate-related questions, which we take source from the Climate Justice Charter and other sources. And then if they get the answer correct, we give them the reward of those juices and the snacks. And if they just answer a lot of questions, even if they get it wrong, we still give them the snacks. So we're using juice boxes and snacks as incentive schemes to get people to think more about climate justice related questions. And it's great that that's even a funded program that we have. Okay, then an academic forum was created by lecturers at the institution. It was spearheaded by a lecturer in our economic and management sciences faculty. And this is a climate crisis academic forum. They were supposed to sit this year. They have not sat yet, but they are going to sit once a semester to speak about ways in which we can change the curricula within our education systems. Already the urban planning department at our institution has, and human settlements department, has added climate crisis into their curricula. There's already a short course on climate resistant housing, which includes natural building. That project I reported on last time. So some lecturers are already teaching about climate resilience within their curricula. And the word we're actually using right now is regeneration, and not just resilience, as in how do we repair broken systems, and not just how do we, not just stopping, building practices that have high emissions. How do we actually regenerate? So that's the new academic terminology, and it's so great that we have an academic forum right now. So that's just a basic update.
Wow.
Do I think that these projects are successful? I think so, yes. We saw an almost 100% increase in the number of volunteers in our WhatsApp groups due to the Climate Maracas, because we're also able to collect numbers, and we're able to create a mailing list. The Free State Center for Human Rights already has a mailing list, so we also take people's email addresses and we can send an update. The final project I want to report on is that we're working on a documentary. I really released a documentary on worker issues earlier in the year, and we saw how successful that was on our campus at rallying students behind worker insourcing, which still has not happened. So we're currently working on a climate-related documentary specific to UFS for UFS students. And once that gets released, we hope that will also help conscientize students. But of course, we're suspending the Climate Maraca now during this COVID-19 outbreak, but our WhatsApp groups are still sending out updates. We create graphics. We're working on monthly newsletters where we speak about initiatives that occur on campus, such as the Food Garden. And the next WhatsApp, we send them out to WhatsApp and email. So the next broadcast is going to go out at the end of this month. So we are still going to organize monthly at least with newsletters up until we're allowed to continue with the Climate Maracas. But that's all good news. I have very little bad news, actually. So how UFS is moving forward. They've even put out news articles about food sovereignty. So they've adopted the terminology now. It's just about getting agroecology specifically implemented. But by May, I don't know what we'll have by May, but as many reports as I can. So that's the update. And in response to the paper, I like it, the demands we like, and we're going to make sure UFS is there in full force.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's really amazing, Tiamo. That's really great.
Inspiring.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Janet, do you want to go next? Or Matthew?
Yeah. You want to?
No, you go.
Okay, cool. So should probably preface my tiny response by saying, obviously, I don't feel like my views aren't reflective of the university and all those disclaimers. Okay, you can't hear me. Should I go closer to the computer so you can hear me?
Maybe just speak louder.
He can't hear you.
At all? And what if I...
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, just speak a bit louder.
Okay, I'll give a standing presentation then. So basically, what I've found at Stellenbosch University, so I've been put onto this by my supervisor, Prof. Stephen Robbins, who is a professor in the Department of Sociology, Social Anthropology at Stellenbosch University. So he started, coming to these events and talking about it to me. So we started thinking about what do these things look like on Stellenbosch's campus, and really it's hard to find. There are people at different institutes. We have a Saatchi chair in the Social Anthropology department that does research on land, water and environment. There's a Water Institute at Stellenbosch University. There's a Sustainability Institute at Stellenbosch University. And there are obviously lecturers, what I've seen in the Anthropology and Sociology department, that have given courses focusing on climate change. And Stephen, when he gets back from sabbatical next year, wants to focus his ethnography module on climate change. But and then I only found out through I'm tutoring an undergrad course, and one of my students is a head of Eco Marties, which is an ecological student society, and that only then did I learn that that's the only time I've had to interact with a student society on these issues. Last year, close to the end of last year, there was we found Stephen was actually I think it was hosting hosting Vish, and there was a student or a couple of students that canvassed the campus with these types of posters for climate change and so on, but trying to track them down was fruitless. So what I'm trying to say through what I've experienced at Stellenbosch University is there's no centralization of any for the response for climate justice or against climate change. So really I and me and Stephen and I guess Stellenbosch University really would like to learn more. Well, first we have to get it started rolling, but how to uncover certain things like which investments of the university are focused towards fossil fuels, and because with the nature of Stellenbosch's investment, a lot of people are investing a lot of money, but under certain auspices, they're not giving the full information, and we don't know what companies they're tied to and so on. So I'm very glad that WITS and UFS and all these other universities are making starting some sort of program, but Stellenbosch, I feel, is very late in the movement, and we really need to catch up and learn from the progress that you guys have made. But that's my response.
Thanks, Matthew.
Sustainability Institute.
I haven't heard much, no.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing is that I don't want to speak on behalf of students at all. And there may be initiatives among the students that I'm not aware of. But there isn't much at Nelson Mandela University in terms of climate justice activism and setting up these kinds of assemblies specifically for this purpose. And I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things. The one was the actual petition. Firstly, I like the idea of these assemblies, but we don't have them yet, and it has to come from students. It really can't come from me as a professor. It's not going to work if it's based on that. In terms of the demands, I think it's very worth taking these up, and it does require us to do a bit of research. So, for example, I have no idea whether our university has investment in fossil fuel. I don't think so, but it's possible. And then whether any academic programs, research programs especially, get support from fossil fuel companies, which I think is actually very likely. And I'm not convinced, okay, again, students can bring this as a demand, but from academics that I know who are doing research, they're not going to appreciate demands to take away their research funding, which comes from fossil fuel companies. Okay, so that's an area of contestation, which I think is quite interesting. But I'm not saying we can't do it. The thing about Nelson Mandela University is that our city is very dependent on the motor industry, which is fossil fuel dependent and motor car dependent. And a lot of our students in engineering especially and other faculties are involved with the motor industry and receive funding from the motor industry. So we'd have to look at that quite carefully as well, and what demands are appropriate in that context. Anyway, I think it's worth exploring those things. Then in terms of the university itself, the zero waste, they're pretty poor. Nelson Mandela University has a very big emphasis in its mission and vision on sustainability, but it's actually very bad in terms of waste and recycling. And I've got my own personal campaign against bottled water, but I think we have to take this further. So this is my own. Let me share with you my one little action in my position of power at the university. Is I refused to approve expenditure on plastic bottles of water. Okay, but almost every meeting or conference I go to at the university, they have plastic bottles of water. So for my department and the conferences that I manage, I can refuse to buy it. You know, I just don't sign the requisition. I don't approve it. Anyway, it's something easy. It's easy for academics to do that. People who have that little bit of power. You know. Okay, the food sovereignty and zero hunger. I think this is a great demand, and we do have some initiatives. I don't think we've gone as far as Free State, or as far as WITS. I mean, I know I'm more familiar with the WITS one, but yeah, we do have our own academic department of agriculture and horticulture department at the university and so on, involved in food gardens, a clinic which supplies food parcels to hungry students, and fresh food, supplements it with fresh vegetables, etc. So there is that kind of a program, and we can build on that. And transition to renewable energy. University has a huge new solar plant right outside our window on the south campus. It is providing some percentage of energy for the university, but it's by no means anywhere near even 50% of the energy that is required. So it's really at this stage supplementary, or just a portion of that energy rather than replacing it. But I think there is a consciousness of the need for that transition. And transport, I think the demand is really important, but our students are really struggling with transport. And I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I think we should really put it out there. I mean, what we need is, electric trams and electric buses powered by solar. But we don't have those. We're a long way from those public transport systems. And the university, hires shuttles and buses, which are all, taxis and buses, which are all diesel powered, etc. Okay, the other thing I wanted to just mention was that in terms of our academic project, what we've been able to do are a couple of initiatives which are quite interesting for this gathering, but I'm not sure quite how we relate it to the campaign as such. So the one is, I've got a seminar which was called Ecology and Economics, where we brought together, there's a small Extinction Rebellion group in PE, and we brought some of them together, like the environmental activists, together with the economists, the mainstream economists, to engage, to try and find an alternative economics. So anyway, that's quite an interesting thing. And then the second thing is what we call participatory action research, which involves not a lot of students, but a few students, but mainly involves working in a project called Transition Township, and that is addressing community-owned renewable energy food sovereignty, and circular economy, like waste recycling, waste to production, in a sort of integrated system in public spaces, like reclaiming the commons and having neighborhood cooperatives which control those spaces. And it's a really exciting project. I mean, we're seeing it as a very path-breaking, prefigurative kind of initiative. It's very, very difficult. I've got to tell you, the big difficulty is the institutional barrier, which is in relation to big systems like energy systems. And I don't know, I don't want to bore everybody with this, but if I can just spend a minute to say the objective of these projects, well, our pilot, we've got one pilot at the moment, is not self-sufficiency. So the idea is to produce energy in a decentralized renewable energy, a PV solar installation, on a public space which people own and control, and sell that electricity to the municipality and to the big consumers in the city. And those poor working class residents of KwaZulu can then make money. They can get income from selling electricity instead of these big companies which are producing in terms of the IPP, as independent power producers and making a big profit, by the way, with their wind farms, which are on white farms, commercial farmland, and the white farmers are also making a nice bit of money from those renewable energy things. And why can't working class people make money from renewable energy? Okay, so that's our sort of position on this issue. And yeah, so it's community-owned renewable energy and circular economy. And we are at a point where we've got our first renewable energy installation owned by this cooperative, linked into the municipal grid. But the municipality doesn't have a mechanism to buy the electricity that's being produced. So the municipality then says we must go through another company, which is a registered wheeler, i.e. they can buy and sell electricity, and that company, which is called Power X, says that our installation isn't big enough for it to be viable for them to do this. So we've now come to another agreement that the municipality will wheel the energy, i.e. they will get it from us and then sell it to another client, and then the money will come back to the cooperative. Okay. It's taken us a year to get this into place. When it is working properly, I'll give you all a very, very nice report, an illustrated report. And the idea is that the residents who run this co-op have an app on their phone, and they can monitor the production of energy. They can see which solar panels are functioning, if it's not producing well, if it's been tampered with, all that kind of thing. And they will know how much money they are making, exactly how much energy is being produced, and so on. Anyway, so the research aspect is doing the feasibility study, implementing it, monitoring it, testing it, documenting it, etc. Okay.
Okay, thanks Janet, that was very informative. But students, do you guys want to just give a quick update on what's happening at WITS?
Okay, so William, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was William or you, set up a VETS climate justice movement. I forgot the name. Sorry. Yeah, so I attended one meeting. It was, I think, 2 weeks ago, and we just kind of like discussed how we would work for towards mobilizing for the May Day March. So right now we just suggest that we'll host an info session, and we'll host it under a banner so that it doesn't seem like it's directionless, just maybe under Inalo EWB Reds. And it'll be like we'll just invite other CSOs to discuss and contribute and comment on the climate justice charter and then we'll take notes and, oh, sorry. Cannot hear me.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, so my voice cannot be louder than that. Okay. So we will be, I'm not sure when the information session will be, but right now we're just working on getting other CSOs on board. So I think it's MSA, UNICEF, I don't know what we decided on political organizations.
REFA, political organizations also could be involved.
Yeah, Activate, INALA,
and religious organizations also.
Organizations as well. So okay, I missed the meeting last week, and I don't know what was discussed there, but yeah, that's all we came up to in the first meeting. Yeah.
But basically, just to add to that, the when we spoke about it at the meeting, the idea was that we need to build up a mass, but it can't just come from us as a group of students who are in a room. That we also need to engage with other people who have student constituencies, and to find ways in which their organizations, as they exist now, could take the climate issue and make it a part of, the context under which their organizations exist. But at the same time, for us to also retain our autonomy, because we solely focused on this issue, but we need them in partnership so that it's not something that is taken by another student organization who just runs with it, but so that it stays focused on that. So that was kind of like the ground foundationary setting of that. Okay, let's build up the mass and find the other organizations who can coalesce around this.
Okay. But it's been very hard to mobilize from Engineers Without Borders because engineering students in general just, I'm really interested. So what I was trying to do is so most of the demands that you put on the thingy that you sent to the group aligns with the work that we do. So some of the projects that we do on campus. So now we're doing a waste management project with vets, but they haven't been cooperating, obviously. And we're also doing, obviously, the garden, and so in terms in waste management, basically we wanna do a campaign first, an awareness campaign on waste management, just on campus. But okay, I think that's still on research phase now. And we approached the dining halls we've been collecting data, and that's kind of going well for now. And I think the best way to go with this is actually reaching out to school councils. Yeah, because school councils. But in my school, like he was saying, CESOL is very problematic. Like they've rooted themselves in the campus. It's very hard to get rid of them. They pay lots of money to schools for research, to fund students as well. My curriculum is basically just about CESOL and ESCOM. It's ridiculous. And it's very hard to try to get academics to, but I think for now, as EWB vets, we can just try work with the movement on campus. Not really to mobilize, because that's also from the national chapter really hasn't been, because I tried to approach them to ask them if we can have an identity as a student chapter, to stand for something, but they don't want to do that because CESOL is a sponsor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So just to say, this committee that has been formed is obviously in addition to the Wits Food Sovereignty Center, which has been running, and in addition to various discussions that have been brought up by people around divesting from fossil fuels. So yeah, it's really good that all of these projects are happening at the same time. Just to add on the Wits side, as I said, there was a march planned for tomorrow, and so we sent out the demands about, I think it must have been last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and we managed to get around 25 endorsements from various organizations, both within Wits and outside of Wits, and that was just in a couple of days. So it's not many, but it was good to see who was endorsing. And just to name the endorsements from Wits, it was INALA, student organization, Engineers Without Borders Wits, MSA, which is Muslim Students Association, XR WITS, the Palestinian Solidarity Committee at WITS, and yeah, I think that was all from WITS. Oh, and then and as Machizi was saying, the importance of student council. So the Physics Student Council also endorsed the demands. So yeah, just in terms of WITS, I think those are like our 6 main groups that we will now continue to engage with because they have endorsed the demands. So they are essentially saying that they will go on this journey with us. I think that's it from the various universities. Are there any questions for any of the
Are there any
universities?
other endorsements?